Hi there, it's Florence here, and you may notice that I'm coming from quite a different looking location today. I've actually moved back to uni, and I said I thought I'd have a really hard time filming at uni because I always end up in a very cheap and small north-facing room. Generally there isn't very much light, but this year I'm actually in this tiny, really cute attic room with a big roof light. So it's way brighter than any room I've been in before, and it's actually pretty good for filming. So yes, that is unexpected and quite exciting, but you may hear traffic, aeroplanes. Basically, I normally live in the countryside, but right now I'm in a city, and city noises will go along with that. For anyone who hasn't been here before, hi, my name is Florence. I am a computer science student based in Cambridge, England, and I've just turned 22 years old. So this is sort of my birthday episode. My birthday was about a week ago, but I do have some birthday yarn acquisitions. And also, as a side effect of the birthday thing, this video is going to be slightly lighter on finished objects and slightly heavier on new yarn and knitting plans, because I did go away briefly for my birthday and I knitted less over the birthday and moving to university period, but I did acquire a couple of sweater quantities of very lovely new yarn, which I'm excited to show you. So yeah, if you enjoy that kind of thing, maybe this is a good episode for you. If you don't, maybe it's not the one. But I do still have, I think, 2 finished objects to show, so that's cool. Anyway, I will start off with what I'm wearing. This might be a slightly petite knit heavy episode. I know a lot of knitting podcasters knit loads of petite knit patterns, and some people don't like to hear about them because so many people make them and they're a little bit basic and super popular. But I think the reason they're so popular is because they're so well written, and I really love the designs. I try to knit things by a variety of different designers, but there are actually 2 petite knit pieces in this video, and so I thought I'd just make it around 3 by wearing this lovely jumper. If you know me in real life, you've almost certainly seen me wearing this anyway. I wear it a lot. This is the Ingrid sweater by Petite Knit, and I knitted it right when the pattern released, which is, I want to say, around Easter time. My version is knitted with 1 strand of a sock yarn. I think it's Rico Superba Alpaca Luxury Sock in the beige colour, and 1 strand of a lace weight beige merino. I don't remember which brand it was. It's quite different from the yarn suggested in the pattern, and it's not one that I would especially recommend. Basically what happened was I was going on a trip and I was going to have a 5-hour train journey each way, so I wanted to cast this jumper on and take it with me. So I had to buy yarn from my local yarn shop at very short notice instead of ordering something really cool online. And my local yarn shop, as I have mentioned many times on this channel, is very limited in what it has. It's mostly acrylic, a little bit of cotton and a bit of superwash. I don't tend to go for yarns like that at all, and so there isn't a lot of stuff that really interests me. This sock yarn is a very lovely texture, and so it did really speak to me. It has this really cool colour appearance to it, where these beige and white strands are sort of combined in a way that looks really cool. And so I went for it for this project. I don't think I quite hit gauge. I think the gauge is slightly too tight still, so I did size up. I knitted the size small, when normally with petite knit patterns I do knit the size extra small. It's generally useful, I guess, to know in a video like this, so I will start this episode by saying my measurements. I'm around 163 centimetres tall. I weigh somewhere between 52 and 55 kilos most of the time, and I have an 83 centimetre bust. So I think with petite knit patterns that does fall into the extra small category. Anyway, this fits pretty well. It's slightly oversized, just the way I like it. I think I knitted the sleeves slightly longer than specified maybe, and the body slightly shorter, but the finished fit is just perfect for me. I like my sleeves long. I like how when I wear a jacket over this, you get a little bit of sleeve poking out. The one issue I do have with this jumper is that the yarn sort of sheds really badly. I'm not even sure if I would describe it as pilling. Like, these fibres just sort of lift off. The yarn was always quite hairy in texture, and the hairy fibres on it are not quite the same colour as the base yarn. So when it does peel or shed, the little bits of fluff that are stuck to it are quite a light cream, which makes them very obvious on the beige jumper base. As a result, while it's lovely, I do tend to have to depil it or shave it pretty often. I should probably have done it before sitting down to film today, but I didn't. Okay, that's enough about this jumper. I know a lot of you guys love it. I will speak a little bit more about it later when I compare it to another piece that I'm knitting in this video, but that's the basic information, I guess. I'll start off with my first finished object, which is quite large and quite exciting. I'm not really sure how to show it because it's kind of shapeless and a bit floppy when it's just lying down because it's a cardigan and it doesn't have buttons. I finished making this wrap cardigan. I will definitely put some pictures on screen because it looks a lot nicer on than when I'm holding it here and all the layers are sort of flopping about. But this is a self-drafted wrap cardigan which I finished just before my holiday. The yarn that I used for this is the Knitting for Olive merino and soft silk mohair, both in the shade Dusty Sea Green. It's a much darker colour than I would usually go for. I went into Beautiful Knitters in London a little while ago when I was on holiday in London, and my boyfriend picked it out for me. He likes dark green colours, but the thing that surprised me is when I posted this cardigan, I posted it both on Instagram and also on Reddit. I don't generally post my knitwear on Reddit, I just sort of mix things up. I got loads of comments saying that they loved the colour, asking what the yarn shade was, that type of thing. So apparently you guys really like it, even if it's not my normal colour scheme. In any case, this is a beautiful yarn combination. It's extremely soft. The mohair doesn't irritate my skin at all, although I don't generally have a very bad mohair sensitivity. The drops mohair I do find a bit itchy sometimes, but I don't have problems with the Knitting for Olive at all. The merino is also super soft, and the pieces just don't really show wear. Like, they never pill, they look really good. This is new, but I have other pieces knitted in the same yarn combination that are much older, and I've worn a lot more, and they all still look beautiful. So this cardigan, I originally bought 3 skeins of each of the merino and the mohair from Beautiful Knitters because I wanted to knit another ballerina wrap top by 2 of 1s. I've knitted this top a couple of times, and I think a lot of you guys kind of know me for this pattern because when I'm looking at other people knitting it on Ravelry, especially like the long sleeve version, a lot of people say that they followed my modifications for it. I do really like how that cardigan looks modified, but it's not totally my style. I wanted something that was a little bit longer, slightly looser fitting maybe. I love double knitted edges. I'm not the biggest fan of I-cord and I quite like knitwear with ribbing in, so I decided to sort of combine all of the things I like most about the wrap cardigans and also the things that I liked about the April cardigan that I finished in the last video and create a new garment that just has all of my favourite features. I like I-cord ties, but also I like double knitted button bands, and I was like, why can't I do a cardigan that just has all of those things? So this does. When I posted this, quite a lot of people were asking if I will be writing a pattern for it. I'm a little bit apprehensive only because it's quite a fitted piece, and so I feel like grading this is a little bit more, there's less room for error, you know, like you have to get it right for all the different sizes. And because it is so fitted, I feel like it's going to be more complicated to grade. Like, it works well on my body type, but I don't know how I can get a similar look on body types that are very different to mine. So I'm not sure if I'll be able to grade it. I'll do my best, and if I do, it's going to require a bit more thought and a bit more maths to try and figure out how to make it work across a wider range of different sizes. With that being said, I'm still planning on at least giving it a go, so maybe at some point there'll be a call for testers for this, but not anytime soon. I'm sitting so far away from the camera now, I'm going to like get up to show you. It has this little I-cord tie on one side, and then round the front it has a double knitted button band. Doesn't have buttons on here, but I'm calling it a button band because it does actually have a buttonhole on the inside, and there's a little button on the inside to keep the inside layer of the wrap in place. When it's done up, you can just see on the waistband where it pulls slightly, so what I might do is experiment with adding a tie on the inside like this, see if it's too lumpy, just see how it sits so that I can decide which one works better. Other than that, it is a pretty normal raglan construction, although the rate of increases are different on the different sides. So it has a pretty wide neckline and it has very fitted sleeves all the way down and ribbed cuffs. I'm super happy with the fit of this on myself. It has that perfect slightly too long sleeve that I really always enjoy, and I wore it on holiday and loved it. So yes, there may be more information on this coming at some point in the future. If I have time to mess about with pattern writing and grading, I'll let you guys know. But I did notice how much love this cardigan got from you guys, so don't worry, I'm trying. I have one other finished object. I'm only showing one sock because the other sock is not yet blocked because I didn't take my sock blocker with me to uni. But these are the cinnamon socks by Yuka, which I had started in the last video. I knitted these socks in novita, I think it's a Finnish yarn brand. The yarn was called Venla. I have once again forgotten the yarn name. I think it's called Sandy Beach? It's the beige one. It's a pretty standard 75-25 wool nylon sock yarn, and I don't mind it. It's not super soft, and there were some sort of plasticky bits on it when I was knitting that felt kind of weird, but I'm happy with the overall sock. I've mentioned before, but I will be doing a sock video on this channel when I've knitted a few more pairs of socks and managed to wear test them a little bit more, where I'll be reviewing all of the sock yarns that I've used and reviewing how they wear and how they look and all that kind of stuff. So this was a new yarn to me and it's pretty unremarkable. I feel like it's the baseline sock yarn, it's just fine. I'll show you guys the pattern. It has this really cool sort of cable looking pattern to it, but I think it's more of like a dip stitch. Like you make these long stitches going into a few rows below. Other than that, it's kind of like a wide ribbing, which is cool. And then it has this twisted rib around the back and a twisted rib heel. Now this sock is knitted toe up, which I mentioned last video was giving me a bit of trouble. I don't like knitting socks toe up. I never managed to make the cast on ends quite neat enough. I always just sort of have to pull the excess yarn in at the corners to make them smooth, because otherwise there's always sort of some looseness and bumpiness at the ends. I also find it very difficult to figure out how long to knit the sock before I start doing the gusset. This one does fit me. I'd say it's slightly on the long side, but that's okay. I will say I enjoyed knitting the heel turn bottom up, but other than that I did struggle, and the bind off especially. I used the bind off that was suggested in the pattern, which was alternating stitches of a stretchy bind off and a regular bind off. So I guess it is kind of my fault because I probably should have done the full stretchy bind off, but this was the one that the pattern designer used. It does stretch over my foot, that's not a problem, but it requires a little bit more force than usual, and it doesn't have that sort of elasticity. So when I take the sock off again, it really flares out. I mean, you can kind of see like how this bind off edge has been stretched, and I never have that with top down socks at all. So I'm glad I did this, but I will probably be sticking to top down socks in the future. I feel like that's a very cute and autumnal pair though, compared to a lot of my white lace or cream lace socks. I also mentioned in the last video that I was having some trouble getting needles for these socks. I bought some 2.25mm circular Addy needles. I knit all of my socks on magic loop. For those of you who've been asking, I just find it easier because I don't have to change needle, and I don't find that the moving between two different needles bothers me. In fact, for socks especially, I find it quite natural when you're doing gusset increases or the heel or whatever. It all just makes more sense when it's laid out on two needles like that, with one for the instep and one for the bottom of the foot and the heel and the back of the leg. I mentioned in the last video that the Addies that I bought were too blunt and it was driving me crazy trying to do increases with them, and I ended up buying some chiaogus. They hadn't yet arrived. So I did finish these socks off with the chiaogus, and I have to say, I know the reason people love chiaogus isn't the pointed tip, it's the cable. The cable I like. I wouldn't say that I like it significantly more than other needles that I have. I normally knit on C-knit KA needles, and they're those types of needles where the cable rotates freely from the needle, which I find kind of prevents any of the issues with cables getting twisted that make people like the chiaogus so much. I know that chiaogu have now also done twisted joint needles, but I don't have them, I just have the regular ones. So yes, the cable is nice, it certainly doesn't bother me, but I did actually find that the tip of the chiaogu needles was also pointy enough for me to comfortably be able to knit lace, cables, and do increases and all that good stuff. So if that's something holding you back, because I know that people like other needle tips more than the chiaogus, I would say go for it, because maybe they're not the pointiest needles in the world, but I find they're still pointy enough to use comfortably. So yes, it was a successful sock, which matches my outfit far too well, and I'm really happy with it. Next time I won't be knitting it toe up though, I think. Or maybe I should just face my fear and try and figure out a better bind off. If I was a good knitter, I would rip this bind off out and do it again. But it's just hard to convince myself to, because while it's not perfect, it is perfectly functional. Like, I can get it on my foot and it's not uncomfortable. I just don't like it as much as the long tail cast on for my top down socks. Okay, so I know there's sort of a usual order that people do these videos, where they show their finished objects and then the next thing should be showing work in progresses, but I'm actually going to start off by showing the yarn that I bought, and then I am going to show what I'm doing with it so far afterwards. I have 3 work in progresses, only one of them's from the new yarn, but I'll show all of the work in progresses after the new yarn. So, I bought 2 sweater quantities of yarn for my birthday. It was with birthday money that was given to me in foreign currency for my trip, so I was kind of forced to spend it. Like, yeah, I didn't have to, but it was my birthday and I wanted to buy something nice. So I did. And the first sweater quantity of yarn that I bought was this one. This is the new shade of this yarn. It's from Sandnes garn. I'm going to call it gynt, but I don't know if that's the correct pronunciation at all. It's a Norwegian yarn, 100% Norwegian wool. This is a new colourway, which is cream, but with these little dark coloured tweed flecks in it. This yarn is DK weight, and I think it's like 91 meters per 50 grams, so you need a lot of these to knit something. I think I bought 14, which is more than I need, but not by that much. Even though the pattern hadn't yet been released when I purchased this, I did know when I chose it what I was going to make with it. Petiteknit has just released a pattern for a new cabled jumper, not dissimilar to this one, although this is more of like, I guess like a Guernsey or Guernsey inspired jumper, whereas that one's a sort of, not really Aran, but that kind of vibe, you know, cream cabled thing. So I just had to take a guess at how much yarn that pattern would require, and it turned out I think 14 was enough for the size medium, so I should have plenty. I was actually surprised at how soft this yarn was. I'd never been able to sort of touch it in a store before, so I kind of expected it to be more woolly, especially since I know a lot of people prefer the double Sunday because it is softer, being merino. I figured that like the slightly cheaper regular non-merino version must be rough, but actually I think I can wear this quite comfortably anywhere. Part of that might be due to it being a lighter colour. I know that sometimes lighter colours can be much softer than darker colours, but yes, I certainly haven't had any irritation from it at all. So, I bought 14 of these, which is more than I need, and I have already cast on the Moby sweater by petiteknit. So, this is where I'm currently up to on it. I just finished the collar this morning so that when I showed it in this video, it would look more like a jumper. Now, you may notice that this is looking quite tiny. I wasn't quite sure what size to knit. I didn't feel like gauge swatching, which, disclaimer, you should gauge swatch, and if you don't, you can't complain when it then doesn't fit. I'm aware of this. And I do gauge swatch if I'm knitting with a yarn that's not recommended in the pattern, or if I'm designing something and I need to know the gauge for calculations, and I always gauge swatch if I'm test knitting. But this was not any of those situations, and so I figured I'd just cast it on. If it ended up being slightly more fitted, that wasn't really going to bother me. I don't mind having a more fitted jumper that I can lay out under things. And if it ends up being oversized, that's also fine. But I like the fit of it on petiteknit. I thought it looked nice. I'm a similar measurement to her, so I figured I would make it extra small. Now, when I started knitting it, and it did look really tiny, what I ended up doing is once I joined this front panel underneath the neck. The construction of this, similar to a lot of other drop shoulder jumpers, especially the petiteknit ones, you knit from the back. I'll show you on this one, it's probably easier. You cast on along the shoulder and the back of the neck, and you knit down until you reach underneath the armpit. And then one shoulder at a time, you pick up stitches along the shoulder, knit down, do the same with the other shoulder, and then join them here. And then you knit down and join the whole thing in the round under the arms. So yes, after I joined the front of the neck, because it did look so small, I did sort of lazily block it. I didn't soak it for ages, but I saturated the jumper under a tap, pressed water out and laid it out flat to dry so I could get a better impression of how big it would be, because cables do look super different before blocking. And once I had done that, I realised that it was fine. Like, I held up other jumpers that I like the fit of over it, and they were about the same width. So it may be slightly tighter than the original, but I think it will be a fit that I'm happy with. With that being said, having added the collar and not yet blocked the collar, that's sort of pulling it in a little bit again, so that definitely needs blocking out. And also you can probably see the cables above this point have been blocked lazily, and the ones below have not. So all of these cables on the front still need blocking. Other than that, this has been a very sort of fun and addictive knit. I've been knitting this for, what's the date today, the 4th? So I've been knitting this for about 4 days, and I've already done this much, and that's even with a lot of other stuff going on as I've been moving and doing uni work. I find this sort of pattern is super engaging to knit, and I will say, I know a lot of people are still knitting this Ingrid sweater even though it came out a few months ago because it's been very popular and still is very popular. And in comparison, this one is definitely a bit harder in my opinion. The Ingrid sweater includes a lot of German short rows. It has German short rows on the back, both front shoulders, also the arms. So that's kind of tricky, but they're all done in the double moss stitch, so it's not too bad. Other than that, I found this sweater to be very intuitive and not too complicated. This one has fewer short rows, but it does have a lot more charts to look at and a lot more going on in that sense. I found it to be a little bit less clear, explaining which chart you're knitting when and what you're doing when and how to read the charts. And I have done a decent amount of charted knitting before, this isn't new to me. The pattern I'm still going to say is pretty well written, but you definitely need a bit of knitting intuition to be able to figure it all out, and so if it's one of your first projects, I would say it's probably going to be a bit too difficult. With that being said, if you're a confident beginner or intermediate knitter, I think you would be fine. Unexpectedly, when I was knitting the folded collar, and I don't know if this is like a new thing on this jumper or if it's just something I haven't come across before, but there's a totally different technique for doing the folded edge of the folded collar that I'd never seen before, which I thought was really cool. I don't want to give away too much about it, and I'm just incredibly excited to have it finished, so I'm going to continue working on it a lot until it's done. The bathroom of the house I'm in is actually, I think it's like the sister room symmetrically on the other side of the house from my bedroom, so it's literally the same size as my bedroom and also has the huge roof light which can open, so I think the bathroom will be the absolute top place in this house to block a jumper. Well ventilated, bright, just lovely. So yes, I haven't really made any modifications to this apart from, I believe I cast on 2 extra stitches when I was joining underneath the arms on each side, just because I am slightly tighter than I'm supposed to be gauge-wise, and so I figured it would give a slightly more relaxed fit by like this much. So I've had so many questions about the yarn, you guys seem to love it, I think it's beautiful, and I do strongly recommend it. I do feel like it's less expensive than a lot of other yarns. Like it still ends up costing a bit because you have to buy so many balls, but they're quite cheap and they're also quite cheaply available in the UK. So if you're UK based, if you check SKD yarns or even knit yarns, they have this yarn at quite a reasonable price, I think. Okay, so now onto the second sweater quantity that I bought. I am not sure I'm even going to attempt to pronounce this, but it's this very pretty grey colour, 100% wool. Now this is a yarn that I've been interested in trying for quite a long time. It's the suggested yarn for quite a few patterns that I've made, and it has that very common gauge. It actually says 17 stitch gauge, but I think a lot of the patterns in it are sort of 18 stitch gauge. It's pretty comparable in weight to things like the Knitting for Olive Heavy Merino or the Focalina Peruvian Highland Wool, but it does have a slightly more rustic look to it, I guess. Like there's more of a woolly halo. I don't feel like I'd need to hold it with mohair to give it that sort of soft focus look. And it's kind of tricky to describe, but the colour, it's one of those greys where the grey isn't flat. Like it's got the black strands and the white strands with loads of contrast between them spun together, and that looks really cool to me. So I was really drawn to it. It is quite hard to find in the UK. I believe there are maybe some shops abroad that ship it to the UK, but when I went and saw it in a store, I was like, I should probably pick this up. It has 200 meters per 100 grams worsted weight for needles 4 or 5 millimeters, and I wasn't sure how much I needed, so I think I bought 6 of them just to be on the safe side, since I didn't know what I wanted to make. However, petiteknit's was it her previous pattern release, or was that the Monday sweater? It might be the one before, but for part of the Easier Botanica collection, petiteknit released the pattern for the Sycamore sweater, which, if you haven't seen it, it's a turtleneck jumper. I think it has a sort of saddle shoulder or partially saddle shoulder construction, similar to the Terrazzo sweater or the April cardigan, and it's a little bit oversized. And it has these amazing, uneven, organic stripes on it, which are achieved with Japanese short rows. So it has like a single main colour, and then the stripes are made of 3 or 4 different strands of yarn held together. This jumper was actually in the window of the shop when I went to get this yarn, and so I was really drawn in by it and I thought it looked really pretty. The thing is, 6 of these is way more than I need to knit this jumper. I think I need just more than 3. So I am going to have quite a bit left, but I'm not bothered by that because what I thought I might do is knit a really nice cabled vest with the excess, use up as much as possible because I've been really wanting a little cabled vest too. Anyway, that's a longer term plan. So this was my base colour for the Sycamore sweater that I want to make. And the stripes would be really great as a way of de-snatching yarn because you don't need very much, probably like 200 to 300 meters most of the sizes I think, for each colour. But it was my birthday and I was excited about choosing something lovely, and so I went and picked out some yarn to hold together the stripes. So these are the 3 yarns that I got. So all 3 of these are from Knitting for Olive. These 2 are the merino, this one is a soft silk mohair, and the colours are, this one's deep petroleum blue, this one is dusty dove blue, I think this one's slate grey, yeah. And here they are held with the base colour. Don't know what this colour is called, but I think it'll look really lovely with these darker, mild blue stripes with the grey base colour. I hadn't seen it when I was picking out these yarns, but afterwards I did see somebody on Instagram who'd knitted the sycamore sweater in a very similar colour combination. I will put their username somewhere. And I saw it and I just felt so reassured because it looks so good. And I would love mine to turn out like that. So this is a very exciting jumper for me. I honestly think that if it turns out nicely, it will be my all-time favourite because this is certainly my favourite yarn I've ever got to knit with. It feels lovely. I don't find it too scratchy, although I should mention I don't have much of a sensitivity to wool in general. I feel quite comfortable wearing wool directly against my skin, even my neck. And it's just so exciting. I can't wait to work with it. Anyway, I'm going to finish the Moby sweater before I cast this one on, but it's probably my next plan after that. So, I have two other work in progress pieces to show, both of which are much smaller and a bit less exciting. Well, this one's pretty exciting actually, but probably less exciting to look at and more just exciting to touch. I have had this yarn for quite a long time. This is, I believe, a 97% cashmere, 3% wool. It's from Skall Studio. They're a clothing company that also sell knitting patterns for some of the jumpers that they sell, so you can make them yourself for cheaper. I think also the occasional knitting kit, and they do completely randomly also sell cashmere yarn. This is actually very cheap for cashmere. This costs, I want to say, £14 for 50 grams. And cashmere normally costs about that, but for 25 grams, so I felt that's quite a good deal. With that being said, I don't think the yardage is that much greater because I would say it's a heavy fingering weight, and you get 200 meters per skein. It feels very soft. It's not quite as fluffy as some other cashmere yarn, and I feel like it's probably a bit more delicate, but I think it's very beautiful and it feels amazing. I bought 5 of these and I didn't really know what to do with them. I was looking at a few different jumper patterns that I might use them for, and I did also buy at the same time the same quantity of this pretty well matching mohair. This is Knitting for Olive. I couldn't tell you what colour it is. Maybe it's bark? I don't know. I'll have it in the description anyway. They look quite nice together, and like I said, I love the texture of the Knitting for Olive mohair, so these feel so good. And I was just thinking, like, this is something I can wear against my neck with no irritation. They feel so soft. I should do something that I'm going to be wearing against my skin, and so I cast on a scarf. I've been knitting for a long time, and the fun fact about me is I've never knitted a scarf. Well, I mean, I've knitted like tiny scarves, but I've never knitted like that full-length scarf that's normally your first project. So there is no pattern for this, so I will kindly give you my not yet pattern, but what I've done so far for free in this video. Here you go. Cast on 50 stitches on each needle using magic cast on. I think this is a 4.5mm needle. Yeah, 4.5mm. So it was 100 stitches in total, and then I've just been knitting magic loop in the round with nothing going on ever since. And that's what the width looks like. I mean, I think it'll be slightly wider when I block it, but I think it's a good, cozy, but not too wide width. It's just plain stockinette on both sides because it is going to be double layered, and so it is going to be super cozy. My game plan pretty much is to keep this as my bag knitting because these needles are thick enough that I'm not worried about them breaking if I carry it around, and also it is 100% stockinette only, no thoughts, which is great for taking to lectures or whatever. So I'm just going to keep on knitting in the round stockinette until I run out of yarn. If it reaches a length I'm happy with and I still have some left, maybe I can make a matching hat or gloves or something like that, because another fun fact about me, I've never knitted a hat for myself. I've only ever knitted hats as gifts to my parents. I've never knitted myself a hat. I don't really wear hats, but maybe I should. So yes, this is bag project number 1. Truly thoughtless stockinette knitting. And then, as usual, I do have a sock. This one has actually been on my needles for a really long time, and I've just pulled it out. Now I've finished the cinnamon socks to become my next sock to finish. This is the Curling Mist sock, I think, or at least the cables are taken from the Curling Mist sock. I don't remember who the design is by, but I'll link it on Ravelry in the description. It's this very simple sock which has these sort of teeny tiny cables on it, like 2-stitch cables. I'm knitting it on 2.25mm needles, and unlike the other socks that I've knitted lately, because I wasn't on a mission to try all different sock yarns and all different heels and stuff, this is using a Fishlips Kiss heel, I think. I can't say I'm a huge fan of the Fishlips Kiss heel. I'm not really on that hype train, but it's fine, and I will knit the other sock to match. The yarn is from my local yarn shop, which means I think it's probably Rico, whatever their standard sock yarn is. And I don't have the packaging for this, so I don't know what the colour is. So yes, I will try and quickly finish these off. They should be pretty speedy, because I have other socks that I'm excited to cast on. Anyway, I think that is everything. I hope this was an enjoyable episode to you guys, and I'll be back again soon in a few weeks with another one. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.